Hello, I'm Jeff from the BlockChyp Payments Lab in Kennewick, Washington, and today we're going to start off our lab series of technical videos with a demonstration of how you would do a point-of-sale integration with BlockChyp. A lot of payment solutions make a sort of general claim that integration is easy, and we wondered how to prove that ours was. We wondered how to kind of make that claim, but with maybe a little bit more behind it than just an assurance. So we wanted to provide some kind of tangible demonstration. And so that's what we're going to do today. We've decided to use to do kind of a sample integration with a point of sale system. It's open source called Floreant. We have installed Floreant, and we have put we've installed the sample database and all the usual stuff here. I am starting it up. So here you can see it. I can press takeout, enter my key. This is the default. I'll clock in. And you can see I could ring up a check and cash out and get everything kind of set up and ready to go. Okay, so I've got a basic transaction going. And here's the settle ticket screen. And we'll just do cash this time just to kind of demonstrate the system. Okay. And there's the transaction completed window. All right. So we don't know a whole lot about Floreant. None of us have really worked with it before. And so we thought it would make a good test case. It's written in Java, and so this will be a chance to show off our Java SDK. And we'll sort of do the whole thing from start to finish. Let me show you where I've got the BlockChyp system at. So all we've really done with BlockChyp is we've set up a merchant account, but we have not set up any terminals yet, and we have not set up any API keys. So we'll start with setting up a terminal. As you can see, I have a terminal over here, and if I click, and this is how a terminal would show up from the factory, and you first start it up, it says fetch to activate, so I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll give it just a second, and I should see an activation code shortly, so there it is. So now if I go back over here to my merchant account, I will go to terminals, activate new terminal, I'll enter the code that I see on the screen there. I'll give it a name. I'm going to call this one test terminal. And I'll hit activate. And if we watch the terminal, it should detect that's been activated shortly. And it gives us a little confirmation showing us who it belongs to. And I'll hit OK to put it in the kind of ready state. Okay, so now it's ready for transactions. But we still have quite a bit of work to do. But if you can look here, I've got all of my transaction stuff right. I've got my terminal activated. There it is. It tells us the type, the blockchain for the terminal. While I'm here, I'll go ahead and generate some API credentials that we're going to use later. So I'll hit go to terminals. Not terminals. I'll go to API keys. And I'll do generate new credentials. And this will generate a unique set of credentials that I can use to do the integration. And I'm going to put these in a configuration file for later use. Okay, so I have I've generated my API credentials, and I put those in a file for later. So now I think we're ready to start the process. Take a look at the source code here. Kind of show you what we're getting into. If I go, see if I can find the home screen. If you can see the back office screen here, the first thing that we're going to have to do is figure out how to set up a credit card. So it's got this card tab. It's got a couple of different gateways already integrated, Mercury, Genico, Auth.net. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is, I know this is the first thing we need to do, is figure out how to get BlockChyp's configuration settings into this screen. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and start the clock. And we will start our work. And for those of you, there is going to be a shorter version of this video, so it's going to get technical. You're going to see what I do in real time. So there's no need to watch the entire thing if you're not interested in the details. There is a shorter version available if you want to see that. So what I'll do is I'll start we're using Eclipse. I have the source code here in Eclipse. The first thing I'm going to need to do is bring in the BlockChyp SDK, which I happen to have over here. I'm going to grab a couple values from our POM file. Those of you who are familiar with Maven understand this, so I'll just grab all those. And I'll go down here into the Floreant POM, and I will add a dependency right up at the top here. So I'll do dependency. And this should come down directly from the Maven main repo one. I will go ahead and bring up a terminal window. I like to do my Maven stuff in the command line, so I'm going to go ahead and go to let's see, Floreant. I'll do a Maven Eclipse to rebuild that and get the package involved to bring in the dependency. Okay, that worked. I'll refresh my workspace to make sure I got it. And I'm going to do a little trick here where I bring in I add the internationalization folder. And this is just based on us sort of poking around in how Floreant works. I'm sure that if the Floreant folks see this video, they might find some of this comical. Okay, so what's next? I'm an old visual age for Java guy, so I like this particular view. I'm going to go ahead and create we're in the wrong project here. I'm going to go ahead and create a BlockChyp package. I don't know if this is how we do it for real, but we're going to create a quick BlockChyp package. And I'll just call it BlockChyp, and I'll put kind of the various things we need to have in here. And I've noticed earlier that there's this there's plugins. So there's this extension folder, and you can see there's a payment gateway plugin abstraction, and you can see there's a couple different ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new plugin first. So I'm going to create a new plugin called BlockChyp plugin. And I'm going to have it extend that abstract plugin class we were just looking at. Oop. Okay, maybe I have the class name wrong. Let's take a look. I'll just create it first, and we'll take a look. Go down here. Payment gateway plugin, that's what it is. Okay, so I'll do that. And bear in mind, we wanted this to be semi-realistic and not super polished, so you'd have a sense of what a real integration might be like. So it hasn't been scripted out in advance. And it's going to be payment gateway plugin. Okay, so we got that. This is probably going to need an annotation, I'm guessing. Let me see what these other plugins look like. Like, we can kind of look at some of these other plugins. Yeah, we need that annotation. So we'll grab that. We'll put it right here. And then we're going to go ahead and generate some of these methods that are required by the abstract class. So there they all are. Product name, product version. Let's see what off.net does for those. Okay, so product name, we're just going to do return BlockChyp. That's pretty good. Okay, we're going to do, what else we got? What's the product version do? Okay, that can return null. That's okay. And then there's an ID. Okay, so we probably want to follow this pattern as well. So I don't know all the details of how Floreant plugin is normally written, but I'm just trying to follow the examples that I see already in the code. Hopefully that'll be helpful. I think how this differs from the normal point-of-sale development experience is that we understand our payment system really well. We don't understand the point-of-sale we're developing super well. I think in the case of most of you who are going to be doing integrations, it's going to be the opposite, where you'll know this stuff. You'll know your own system really well, but maybe not our stuff. And so we've tried to make our stuff super easy, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. So most of this work so far is not specific to BlockChyp, but it's just part of this particular point-of-sale system. Okay, let's see if that's enough to get us rolling. I just want to see if I can get our stuff to show up in that drop-down box first. Then we'll worry about how to take the next step. Let's see, I want to turn that ID. There we go. That's pretty good. And then we're going to need to register the gateway somehow. We created this. There's an extension management system inside of Floreant that we didn't quite understand. I think there's some kind of security process for how you add additional plugins. So we sort of made our own extension manager just for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to go ahead and add our stuff to that. New BlockChyp plugin. Okay, there it is. All right, I think that's good enough to at least try running it for once. So let's see if I still have it running. Let me go ahead and shut it down. So we're going to run it again. And I will go ahead and press and go ahead and run it. We'll see what's going on. Okay, it likes to start open in my other screen. So, all right, so we'll go to back office 1111. And that opened in my other screen as well. I'll bring it over here. Admin, configuration, card. We have a little bit of a glitch. Okay, so our plugin showed up here, but we see the package names. That probably means I'm missing some kind of a name thing. So I'll go ahead and exit out. Go ahead and kill this. Go back to my plugin. This is me not understanding Florian. That's what you're seeing here. Let's see what off.net does. Okay, just doing some research here. Might be toString. I see that implemented in some other places, so let me see if that's our issue. It might be. So I'll go ahead and add a toString method here, which is just basically a standard Java override thing. So I'll go ahead and override it just to make sure it hasn't already been overridden. And I just didn't see it. It's on object. Actually, it's not. Oh, this is in the wrong plugin. Hang on. Go back here. Okay, let's try this now. So we're just going to restart it, and we're going to open up the admin config screen. And it's running. Back office 1111, which is the default password for Floreant. I'm sure there are no production systems out there really using it. It's just for test purposes. Okay, that's okay. I expect that error, probably because we haven't defined the view yet. But now you can see BlockChyp now shows up at the dropdown. So that's progress. So now we need to make sure that when you select BlockChyp that you don't get an error, you get an actual form. So let's start with that. And close this. All right. So if I look at the other plugin here, the auth plugin, I see a configuration pane, get configuration pane method. So it looks like I'm probably going to have to create a one of these configuration views. Let me take a look at this one. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a copy of this default view, and I'll use it as kind of a starting point, and I'll modify it as I go. So let me go back to my view here. So I'm going to copy this over to my BlockChyp package, and I'm going to rename it. We're just going to call it, we're going to keep it simple, we're going to call it BlockChyp configuration view. And we're just going to, modify this extensively to do what we need to do. Okay, we have a couple of issues here, probably because we're not in the right package anymore, so we do that. Okay, and that cleans things up and it goes away. Now I'll go to the BlockChyp plugin, and I'm going to do this. So it looks like there's a view. I don't know if you have to do it this way, but it looks like the pattern is they sort of treat the view as a singleton, and they initialize it if it's, they cache, they only initialize it one time. So I'm going to follow the same pattern here. I'll go over to the BlockChyp plugin, and I'll create a private instance of my BlockChyp configuration view. We'll call it view, and then we'll follow what I think the same pattern was here, where I'll do if view is null, then I'm going to have to initialize it. View is equal to new BlockChyp configuration view, and we'll call initialize on it like that, and then we'll return it. Okay, so now this doesn't have our specific stuff in it yet, but that should be enough to make the error go away. So we'll try that and see how far we got. So it looks like the clock's we're about 10 minutes in so far. And we've already got our stuff showing up in the dropdown. That's pretty good. Okay, back office. 1111. And admin, configuration, card. Okay, no error anymore. And it looks like if I switch to BlockChyp, I get some fields. Now these fields are in no way relevant for BlockChyp, so now we have to make them BlockChyp fields. Okay. Let me shut this down. Because BlockChyp does have, it doesn't really deal with merchant IDs, at least not at the level. You basically put in API keys and everything is it's a little bit different. So I will go to the configuration, the BlockChyp configuration view, and it looks like there are some fields up here. And I'm going to kind of just change these to be what I want them to be. So we're going to need a gateway URL. Okay, we're going to need a. So there's this POS text field. We'll just use that. Looks like that's something that they use for a lot of things. We're going to need what we call an API key, which identifies your credentials. POS text field. Now we're going to need something called a bearer token. And this is another way of identifying you, but we also store it in our database as a one-way hash. And so this is something that can't be decrypted if someone hacks our database. And then we have another thing called a signing key. And this allows us to do HMAC signatures on API calls. So we have both the bearer token that has the strong kind of one-way hash protection, and then we have the signing key, which involves digital signatures, so that shared secrets aren't sent over the network. We're also going to add a text field for a default terminal name. We'll do default terminal. So that's pretty good. Get rid of all that and all that. We don't need any of it. We're just going to chase. We're going to chase places where we broke things. All right. So I'm not going to need any of this stuff. Actually, what I'm going to do, I think, is do a quick. Maybe just do one field and see if that works. And then we'll come back and do the rest. Okay, and I've already tell a few things we don't need. We don't need an open browser. I don't think we need any of this stuff, so I'll get rid of all that. Don't need any of this. We don't need that. We don't need this. I think it's all very specific to what they were doing before. But we probably do need the save stuff, so I'm not sure how this works yet. I'm going to go ahead and comment it out temporarily. And then we'll figure that out in a bit. Okay. All right, so looks like we're creating a label here. It looks like they're very wisely localizing these labels. That's great. I love when I see that. We're not going to do that though. And we're just going to change this label to say gateway URL. And this would default to something. Would be api.blockchyp.com. Is what you want this to be ordinarily. But we are working locally today, so something slightly different. And then I'm going to go ahead and create my first field, tf gateway URL. So with the new POS text field. I'll initialize it with the text that's going to be in it. Well, actually, I won't, because we're not going to have a default for this. And did I get that right? I'm getting an error here. Oh, I missed the E. That's all it was. Okay, there we go. Okay, we'll do that. Okay, now let's see if this works. We should at least see one of our fields. All right, it's a little messy right now still, but we're only 15 minutes in, so we're still doing well. We have plenty of time. And there's the point of sale, there's the back office, 1111. And let's go to admin config. Oh, it's keeping us here now. Okay, BlockChyp. Well, so we got our field. So gateway URL is there. That's awesome. Let's get the rest in there. I'm not super, it's been a long time since I've done Java Swing, so I'm not super familiar with it, which is the UI toolkit they're using. I'm not super familiar with this MIG layout, but I think I can kind of figure out what's going on, so I'll just try to wing it here. I'll take this, let's clean this up, make it what it really is, label gateway. Okay, we'll do that. That way I can rest a little easier. Okay, so what we'll do is I'm going to pop down a little bit. I'm going to move the head of my comment right there. And then I'll do the same thing here. And this is going to be label API key. And we're going to get rid of this message lookup. Although in a real system, you probably should keep that. But I think it would obscure what we're trying to demonstrate today. And then we'll do that. And so now we got our label. Let's add our API key field. Okay. Let's see if that works. And if that works, I think we can probably just power through the rest of those settings. Then we got to figure out how to store them and load them and all that fun stuff. Okay. Okay, configuration card. Okay, there we go. API keys there. That's great, and it looks like it's in the right spot. So let's just finish out the rest of our settings. And I'll just kind of copy and paste here and then change things. I don't need the rest of this, I don't think. I'll get rid of all the stuff I've commented out. I don't think I need it anymore. Okay. We'll call this one label bearer token. And with this API key, bearer token, signing key stuff, you don't really need to understand what any of these things do. You just copy the settings over. We'll eventually do, I think, a lab series video and explain it in more detail. But it'll be a while if we do that. I'm going to change this number to 6. I have a feeling I have to keep these numbers going up to make this work. And we'll call that bearer token. Okay. I think I spelled it wrong. All right, that's pretty good. Let's do our signing key and our default terminal name, and then we'll be done with the UI part of this. We got to make the settings, get saved. And label signing key. Gotcha. And the last point of sale system I worked on was a Java-based point of sale system called Thrive, but it was web-based. It was not thick client-based like this one. So I'm having to tap on a lot of stuff from my early days here. Okay. All right, let's do one more field. I think we didn't screw anything up too badly. This one will be default terminal, which is not something that you need to have. Like, in a real system, you probably want to, wherever you're configuring your workstations, you probably want to be able to set a terminal there, a terminal name. But it's always nice to have a default, because some places only have one shop, one cashier station. There's no need to make things too complicated in that situation. You could always have a default. And that'll make things a little simpler for us too. Change that to 8. Change this to, and I'm not sure what I guess TF is text field, never mind. We're using Hungarian notation here for variable names. And that goes there. And that goes there. Okay, I think we have all of our fields. Let's light this up, see if we broke anything. See if we at least see all the fields we want to see. Okay, so there's the point of sale system starting up. Back office, 1111. admin configuration card. Yep, there they all are. Look at all that. Okay, I'm not going to put any values in right now because we are going to have to save them first. Let me just close that. We don't need to keep all that nonsense. Okay, cool. All right. Let me look at what auth.net does here for initialize. I don't see. Looks like very little. But it's probably in the default view here. It's not the plugin. Never mind. Just want to see what kind of things are happening. Okay, so we're just pulling all of our settings out from wherever we keep them, and then we're going to copy them to the values. Then we got the save. So I think what I'm going to do is here on initialize. Let me go back to ours. The BlockChyp configuration view. Okay, that's good. I noticed earlier there's a couple ways to do this. They have this card config object, and we were looking at it. I'm not sure if this is going to be the right fit for us. They also have this thing called app config, which basically is a way just to write arbitrary settings. So I'm going to see if I'm going to create a key called BlockChyp config, I think. And so this allows us, we do have a way, because we realized that a lot of point-of-sale systems don't really have these concepts of terminals and signing keys. And so we've built something in the SDK that allows you to take all of our settings and turn it into a single string for storage if you want, and then you can kind of pop it back out. And so that's what we'll do here. So we'll do, let's see, we'll just call this string BC config. Okay. And then we'll do, let's see if they have string utils in here. They do, great. It is not empty. Then we know that we have to load it. Otherwise, we're going to load some defaults. I noticed earlier that I'm not able to type for some reason or copy and paste into the text fields. And I don't know, that might be that might be for a good reason. So what I'm going to do, just simplify things for us, is I'm going to load some config files from we have the default file that we keep on our development stations that we have configuration settings in for running local tests, and I'm gonna have the values default to what's in those files. So let me just figure out how to do that. Okay, so I think I can just open a file. I'm gonna call that. The file lives on our, we use Mac here, so we don't have derived letters. BlockChyp, SDK, and this is not something you'd have to worry about at all in your system. This is strictly just so that I don't have to hand type in all of those obscure hexadecimal characters when I configure this thing. So if that file exists, then let's load it. I'm going to need an object mapper, I think, because I'm going to use, because we do everything with JSON, so I'll go ahead and create an object mapper. I think Jackson's in here, yeah, it is. Since it would come in with our transitive dependencies in Maven. Okay, so there's object mapper. So I'm going to read the value from that file. I think it accepts the file. Yes, it does. So we'll pass in the file, and we want this to come back as something called BlockChyp configuration, which comes from our SDK. And then, so I'm going to stub that in up here real quick. I'm trying to, because it could get loaded from a couple different places, but it's the same thing either way. So I'll do that. And this is only if you want to use our configuration stuff. You don't really need to. You could just store each of those individual fields, whatever way you store them now. I just figured with this particular point of sale system, since they have this sort of dynamic app config stuff, it'd be easier just to turn it into one string and store it that way. Okay, so that reads the file. That's good. Now, if for some reason we've already stored configuration settings in here, I can do config. I think it's called configuration codec. That comes from our stuff. Then I can do decode, BC config, and that basically loads we actually, all we're really doing here in this codec is we take the settings and we turn it into JSON and base64 encode it so that characters in JSON don't break properties files or whatever. Okay, so now we should have configuration settings. So all we need to do is copy them to the various fields. So we'll do set text, config get gateway URL. This is pretty boring. Gateway host in this case. And then we'll do API key, set text, config get API ID, tf bearer token, set text, config get bearer token, tf signing key, set text. And you notice most of this work so far, it's not really about running cards. It's just about making sure that you can configure our stuff. And in some systems, this may not even be relevant, because a lot of point-of-sale systems, they just put these things in config files, and they're not really accessible through the UI. But in this case, it was. And I thought it would make a more realistic example than just throwing everything in a properties file. Okay, and a default terminal name. Okay, and we'll do default terminal. Should be, there it is. Okay. All right, so that should be enough for another test run. So we'll run this, and I'm going to go ahead and run it in debug mode just in case something breaks and we need a breakpoint. Hey, we're not gonna get a perfect record here. 26 minutes in, I think we're doing okay so far. Okay, yeah. So those are all the settings that I had copied to that file earlier. All right, well that's good. So that's working. I just want to make sure that I can save these settings if I change them first. So what I'm going to do now is I could leave it there because we've got the settings we need, but I don't think that's a realistic example. Looking at these, I don't think we're going to need any of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a BlockChyp configuration object. This is just a POJO, for those of you who understand Java. A plain old Java object is what that stands for. BlockChyp configuration, config, set. Start with the gateway host, and that comes from the tf gateway URL, get text. We'll just bang on through the values here. tf API key, get text. Set default terminal, or we want to do signing key now. tf caps text. Set default terminal name. Okay, and now I want to turn this into a string that can be stored. We'll call that encoded format. We'll use the configuration codec, get instance, encode, config. Okay, that should be good. And then I can take that app config, no, not API config, app config. I guess they have Google Maps in here. And we'll do set, I think it's just set string. Let's see if that's correct. Oh, I think it might be put. Maybe I think it was put. Yeah, that's what it is. And then there's BlockChyp config. We're going to fix that in a second because we don't want to duplicate string literals. I know this is just a demo, but we don't want to have the same string literal in here twice. It's my OCD. Just got an email. I'll spare you guys the details. Okay. All right. I just want to make one. That should be all we need, but I want to make one little change here. I just want to declare a constant. We'll put it on the plugin because we'll need it elsewhere when we load our configuration. So I'll do do public final static string BlockChyp config key. We'll call it BlockChyp config. just so I'm not setting a bad example. I'm probably setting a few already, but we can draw the line at string literals. Okay, so now I go back to my view, and anywhere I'm looking up that, I will just switch to using the BlockChyp plugin config key. There you go. All right, if this works, then the UI config part will be done. So let's give it a whirl, and we'll see if it works. Okay, I'm bring the, keeps opening the wrong window here. Back office, 1111. Okay, admin configuration card. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm just gonna add like a Z on the end and save it and see if it works. Okay, I'm gonna go back, configuration, card. Oh, there's the Z, it's stuck. Okay. All right, so 30 minutes in, we have our configuration done, and I have a feeling that's gonna be the hardest part here. Okay, let's see how we actually go about running cards now. That should be interesting. Let's go back and look at the auth.net gateway to see what they did in here. And I'm sure it wasn't authorized, the auth.net people that did this. I'm sure this was done by the Floreant developers. Okay, it looks like there's this thing called a processor that gets returned. So we have to create a card processor, which I imagine is an interface. Let's take a look at it. Oh yeah, it looks pretty normal. Okay, so let's go to back to our package, our BlockChyp package, and I will create a new class called BlockChyp Card Processor, and it's going to implement the card processor interface. There it is. That's great. Okay, so now I just want to make sure I can hook this in the right places. So I have a feeling it's got all the kind of basic stuff here, and that's good. I'm going to start with just the charge amount. I guess this is probably, if we're not doing pre-auths, what this would be. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do some log output here, and I'm going to set a breakpoint, because I just want to make sure that as I get into figuring out like to use this, that it's called in the way I think it's going to be called. And then we'll go back and make things real. So now I'm going to run the application and actually bring it in order. And I want to make sure that breakpoint gets caught. And if it does, then I know this is the right place for us to do the, the real card stuff. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to do a takeout order. 1111. Let's keep it kid friendly. Do kid stuff. A chicken dinner meal. That sounds awesome. The total. Okay. The settle ticket window has opened up. I will do credit card. And I got like a bug. What happened there? A null pointer exception. Oh, I know what happened. I didn't see how it called payment gateway get processor. We didn't implement this method in our plugin. That's what that was. So now, see right here, that's the problem. So let's do return new BlockChyp card processor. I would love this to be more of a singleton and kind of Spring-based, but this is how we are. Okay, so let me kill that JVM and we'll start a new one. All right, so we're running again. And take out. And let's do some chicken tendies for the kids again. And okay, so we have a settle ticket dialog opening up. It's opening up in the other window for some reason. I'll hit card, credit card, and poof, there it is. Look at that. We caught our breakpoint, so that's good. All right, so we know that's the right place to hook our stuff in. Now, this is where it gets really not complicated at all. Okay, so I'm going to need to probably look at my configuration. So I'll do string config, and I'm going to probably look at it from that same place, I imagine. App config, get string. And remember, we created a constant for this. So I'm going to put BlockChyp, plugin, config key. Now I need to turn it into a BlockChyp configuration object. And again, you're under no obligation to use this BlockChyp config stuff. You can totally do it yourself with your own fields and entities and stuff. Let's change this to config encoded to differentiate. And then we'll go to BlockChyp, or no, I think it's just configuration codec. Oh, can't type today. Okay, get instance, decode, config encoded. All right, and now we can run a transaction. So there is, we need to create a BlockChyp client. So BlockChyp client. You just instantiate like this. You can pass in credentials and gateway information if you want to. You don't have to. We're going to go ahead and do that, though. I think, let me double check my code here. Let's see. So there's a couple versions of this constructor. One takes the host and gateway credentials for default credentials. Our credentials never change, so we're going to start with gateway credentials. And this is basically where you would copy. We copy the settings from before. You do have to use this class. You don't have to store your credentials the way that we're doing it here with the BlockChyp configuration stuff. That's just for those of you who kind of don't want to worry about creating new fields and stuff. You can sort of shoehorn this into what you already have. That's the idea. Okay, that's good. Creds. And realistically, we do this a little bit cleaner. We might do this in the initializer for the class, and but just to demonstrate how this works. You don't need to do this at every. We could do this once and be done, right? Okay, so we have the signing key. Okay, that's good. Okay, so then we have host. So now we'll copy the host in from the credentials. Get the gateway host, and then we'll pass in the creds object. Now we have a client. Okay, so now we have a really complicated method called charge. So there's this charge request class. So let's create a charge request. Good. And we'll create a new charge request. Okay. And really all you have to set here is an amount. And we do amounts as strings. And the reason is just to make sure there's no confusion about, floating point numbers or decimal points. It's just totally spelled out. So let me figure out how amounts are encoded in this system. I have a feeling it's on transaction. And I bet we're going to have to do some number formatting stuff first. More than likely. Okay, so let me just go ahead and just defensively, I'll create a number format from t equals 2. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and do kind of a pound 0.00 just to make sure that we get it in US decimal format. But you could do this however you would want to do it for your system. And let's do FMT format, and let's see what's on this transaction for an amount. Oh. Calculate authorized amount. I wonder which of these is the most relevant for us. Let's see what they do over here. Let's see. Charge amount. Great credit card. Be here. No. Look at that old track data and stuff. We don't want that anymore, do we? Might be here. No, probably not. May not be that important, but we should. Okay, let's try calculate authorized amount. I have a feeling that might be what it is from when I was poking around. Okay. Okay, so terminal name, that comes from our config, the default terminal. In practice, we really want to do this. If there is some kind of context information that comes in here, whatever it is, that identifies the terminal or workstation, you want to look up your terminal name for that workstation, and if it's null or invalid, then you can do this one. Okay, and so we'll do a charge response. Okay. And let's figure out what we do if things go well. If it is approved, what are we going to do here? There's probably some state information we set on the transaction. Set captured, probably. Let's do that. And then let's see what the declined behavior is. Let's take a look at that other one. See what they do if something's declined. I know that never happens to you, but it happens to some people. They have declined cards. Looks like we throw an exception. Okay, that's good. We can do that. We can just throw the same exception. Well, we'll throw a different one, but we'll throw an exception. And we'll just say declined. And I like that idea of maybe throw it in some reason information, so we can do that too. Get error message. That works. Okay. Surely we made some kind of a mistake here, but we will we'll try to run a card now and see what happens. We're 41 minutes in. Just making sure I have my cards and everything ready to go. Okay. Who's nervous? I'm nervous. Let's do this. Okay. Point of sale system is up. 1, 1, 1, 1. Stick with the kids meal. Good. And we'll do credit card. Ah, sums up. Okay. Let's try it again. Just doing some debugging here. See what I'm doing wrong. I think it's bad credentials. So let's figure out what's going on with that. I'm just going to set a breakpoint here and see if the credentials look like they're correct. Mistake, we don't want the back office. It's starting to feel more like real development. We run into some issues. It doesn't always go smooth. Let's see what config looks like. Well, this is interesting. These are wrong. These credentials are not right. Okay. I think it has to do with a previous experiment we did here. We need to clear them out. See, here's our config as it's stored in the database. So I'm going to nuke that. And we're going to start again with configuration. Okay, those look right. Okay, well, I think we're good. So let's save all of that. And now let's try running a card. So I'm going to take out kids, chicken tender meal, total, tender screen is up. And let's run a card. Okay, breakpoint hit. Okay. All right, we'll try one more. We're still doing well. Let's search the clock there now. We're at 48 minutes. That's not bad at all. Okay, I'm going to restart this thing. Do take out. Let's do a new order. And we select credit card. And let's let the clock run here. Okay, we have a present screen on the terminal. Put a card in. It's running, it's running, it's running. And I'll remove the card. And you can see it has our transaction approved. Breakpoint has been hit. And let's see what our, and there it is. There's the transaction completed window here. Let's try this one more time, but without, I think we can stop our clock now, though, because we got something actually running. So we're going to stop the clock at 49:30. 49:32. But just to show it again, without the breakpoint delays, I'll clear my breakpoints and we'll run another transaction. So I'll start her up. Oh, she's already running. So let's do another order. Let's get out of here. We'll do a takeout. And We'll do lunch this time. I'll have a grilled chicken sandwich. About some iced tea. That sounds good. All right, so $2, very cheap. Okay, so let's go with a credit card this time. Okay, terminal has woken up yet again. I'll put a card in. Authorizing and approved. And then I see there is the transaction completed screen. So there you have it. That was, I mean, obviously we'd have to bang through and do the same thing with, pre-auths and captures and voids and the usual stuff. But just to get to a point where you're kind of up and running, we got there in under an hour, and we had very little familiarity with the point of sale system, and we ran into a few glitches that didn't go perfectly smoothly. So I think that's a pretty realistic depiction. And one of the things that you might notice is that we were about, I think, 30 minutes in. It took about 30 minutes just to get the BlockChyp configuration stuff done, and then getting the actual transaction processing code in place. That all happened really fast. So I think that's a pretty realistic example of what it's like to do an integration with BlockChyp. My apologies to the folks from Floreant if we totally messed things up, but I hope you'll forgive us. And so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here, and thanks for watching the BlockChyp Lab series. We'll see you for the next video.